Hang on a minute. I've just eaten a nutty chocolate bar. I'll just get rid of that. Okay. So hi, my name is Matt. I live on the Beara Peninsula. I first moved here because I wanted to learn to meditate. And there's an amazing meditation centre here called Dzogchen Beara. That was in 1998. So I'm interested in learning about well-being and purpose, meaning, fulfillment in life. I'd be interested to talk to anybody, listen to anybody rather, who I feel could help make sense out of the world we live in. Any little bit of wisdom I can pick up here or there around the place. It was a few years ago. I was driving Sophia to Cork for a hospital appointment. It's a 4-hour round trip and I really enjoyed it. We were gassing away all the way there, all the way back. And what I'd particularly like to hear from her today is a mantra for life. You could say a mantra for old age. I think that's what she called it at the time. But I think it's relevant for any age. And also it just shows that if we live our lives with awareness and heart, then it can teach us a lot. And we can also overcome. Because one of the things about Sophia is it's kind of easy to be philosophical and bright when things are going easy, but she hasn't had an easy life at all. In fact, this meeting, I think I first proposed it about 18 months, 2 years ago, and it's been cancelled, postponed for various reasons, her reasons, because she's had certain things come out for herself. So I just texted her, and here we are. An hour later, I'm on my way down. So sometimes that's the way to do things, isn't it? A little bit spontaneous. So here we go, we're just pulling into Sophia's drive. Not a bad view, eh? Hello.
Hello to you. Please come in.
Okay. So you say you haven't had a recording like this for how many years?
Oh, maybe 60 or so.
60? What was the last one?
Well, I used to do modeling.
Did you?
Yeah,
What kind of modelling?
clothes.
Okay.
But
In California, eh?
in New York.
Okay.
That's a long time ago.
Would you consider you've had a lucky life?
Very, very lucky.
What's been lucky?
Well, there have been lots of things that have been, what would you call it? It's like you think you're going someplace because of this, but you're actually going because of that. Mm-hmm. But you wouldn't have gotten to that if you hadn't done this, you know? Red herring. It's like a red herring. It leads you to where you really need to go, but through a path that you wouldn't have, that you had to take in order to get there. Mm-hmm. And you wouldn't have gotten there if you hadn't taken that one. You know, does that make sense? It's happened to me so many times, I can't even really picture it, but that I've gone someplace for A, but I was really there for B. Mm-hmm. It's just happened over and over in my life. And I would call that very lucky, because to get where you really need to be, to do what you actually really need to do, sometimes it has a very peculiar path to it, you know. But if you follow the path, you get there.
So what does that sounds like there needs to be a certain amount of openness and trust. Because if you're very fixed in where you're going and how you're going to get there, you can't do what you're just describing, is it? Or...
Well, it was like the way I left America to come and went to England. You know, I thought I was going there to do a particular job, and I wouldn't have gone if I didn't think I was doing that job. But when I got there, that job no longer existed, but something better did. That's the kind of example I'm talking about. Yeah.
You talked about once to me about being a house mother and what that taught you.
Well, in the Camp Hill system, a house mother that now they no longer use that term. Now they're called house managers, which I think is too bad. But the idea is that you are in charge of a house, either on your own or with your husband or partner, and there are people with various additional needs living in that house with you. And I had never lived in a community situation before. And I learned a lot from that in terms of letting other people do things their way. You know, the kitchen, I'm very into cooking, was always my thing. But now it was mine and this person and this person and this person. And to learn to just let go of stuff and not only let other people do stuff, but not be in charge of what they do. Let them do it their way. You know, short of burning the house down. You know. But that was very valuable for me to have that experience.
So you say you had a lucky life, but I was thinking as I was walking down here that we tried to we made this arrangement to have a chat a few times and it got postponed.
Yeah.
And one time was because your teeth weren't ready.
Yes.
And hadn't been fitted, for example. And I just, you know, we've known each other for probably 20 years around.
Yeah.
And I just know that during that time you've been living with and met various adversity along your way. And that's how I would describe it. You know, challenges as life throws up. And then when we drove to Cork, you were telling me about a mantra you kind of had, or a philosophy. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
What was that?
It was accept and adapt.
Yeah.
You know, and that applies to so many areas of life at so many stages of life. You know, it's absolutely vital as you get older, because the most unhappy people in my age group that I know are people who are still hanging on to everything and denying things, you know, like, no, I don't need hearing aids, and, you know, that kind of thing. So that's very, very important as you're getting older, to be able to accept whatever changes are happening in your body particularly, and make adjustments for that, make adaptations for that, so that you can continue to do as much as you can. But it's not only for old people. You know, it really, really applies to, I think, every stage of life. You know, to actually be able to be present in the moment, accept what that moment is, and decide and figure out how to work with that. You know, that's how I feel about things. You know.
Did it come to you in one instant or in one circumstance, or do you think it's something that life gradually taught, or that you gradually learned from life?
Well, I think it's probably that I learned that but didn't vocalize it, you know. And it was when a dentist whose mother was my age and who is having difficulties said, how do you manage to be as well and active as you are at your age? and it just, and then the phrase was there. Well, I just accept and adapt. So, but I think I've been living that for a long time. I just hadn't vocalized it. But then it was there. Now some of our mutual friends in the area come up with that and throw it back at me, when they're dealing with something. They say, oh, I'm just accepting and adapting, haha, But and these are people who are much younger than I am, but everybody's facing some kinds of challenges in their lives. Yeah.
Yeah, you've always brought a unique sense of humour to any situation. Definitely, I think that's probably part of it, isn't it? Accept and adapt. But one of the things I appreciate about you is you're very direct. If you want help, you ask. If you don't want help, you make that very clear too. If it's interference or and outcome.
I think it's really important to be direct. Not in an offensive way, hopefully, but just to make things clear, because I've dealt with people who have what I would call snakes in the head, and you say something and they interpret it and then they reinterpret, and this goes, and I can't really do that. I guess I'm still too American for that. This kind of directness, because it cuts through things. And that's how I grew up dealing with things. And so that's how I still am.
And you don't talk about your problems, do you?
Well, problems is not a great word. I don't like it very much, because I think there are challenges, there are events, there are conditions, but all of those things indicate something that can be worked with. To me, if you're talking about a problem, it's something that's insoluble, and I don't see things as problems.
Do you have regrets?
No. No, I think that's something else that's a complete waste of time, because there are things it would have been good if I'd done them differently. There have been many things that I think I could have done better than I did, but that's different than having regrets. I don't mull around about those things because they are what they were. And it's like, my family life was a little peculiar. My father was a very difficult person, and deserted the family when we were quite young, with 6 children in the house. And for years, I just really hated him. But at some point, and it was in my late teens, the thought, click, came that if he could have been a better person, he would have been, because nobody would really want to be the way he was. And that just resolved that. After that, I didn't have a problem about him. But I feel that way about myself, too. If these situations that I could have done better in, if I'd been a different person at that point, I would have done better. But I wasn't, and I didn't. But that's not regrets, It's accepting how your life has unfolded is what it is, I think. Something like that.
Is there a part of you that wants to go back, wants to be younger?
Oh, God, no. No, thank you. No. And especially, the world has become a difficult place. I feel sorry, actually, for young people, what they're having to deal with and having to face now. And no, I wouldn't want to do that again. If I have to come back in another life, well, I'll deal with it when I get here.
So for these young people, whatever age that might mean, what advice would you give? What would you share?
Well, there's the old accept and adapt, isn't there? Which is going to apply massively to young people, because things are changing so rapidly. You know, things really are changing very, very rapidly, and for young people who can't find the flexibility to deal with that, they're going to be in big trouble. You know, that is the advantage of being my age, of having gone through decades of adapting and adjusting and finding my way through a lot of things. My life hasn't been a straight path. And so anything I have to say comes out of the experience of my years, you know.
But some people experience twists them and makes them bitter. It's like the old cliche, you know, it's not the wind, it's how you set your sails.
Mm-hmm.
It really feels like you've set your sails in a certain way.
Well, you know, I have several friends in their early 80s to early 90s that I'm in contact with on a regular basis. And I feel very sad when I hear people say, oh, you know, and one of them is quite a reminiscer. Oh, it was so wonderful in my college days. Those were the best days of my life, blah, blah, blah. I think that is terribly, terribly sad, you know, because if you ask me right now, what is the best day of your life, I would say today is.
Really, though?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
I'm just testing you. I think you're right.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. It's knowing that the people who are, the person particularly, who goes over and over and over the highlights, and knowing that she's a very unhappy person now. If you're going to review some part of your life that you enjoyed and was a good thing to remember, that's great. But if you're doing that out of the fact that now you think your life is terrible and you're unhappy and you're sad and you wish you were back in college, that's sad. That's the one that I think is too bad.
It's almost pushing happiness away, or the gap between you and happiness is bigger.
Yeah.
And where was it I heard or read, you know, if you're always looking for happiness somewhere else, then you can never be happy where you are. If happiness is always somewhere else, so if it's in the past or if it's in the future, then how can you ever experience it here and now? So, yeah.
Well, and also I think happiness gets interpreted in so many ways that are meaningless, when actually the thing that is more important, especially, well, at any age, I think, but definitely when you're older, is contentment. You know, because happiness is like a flash in the pan or seeing a rainbow or something. But contentment is being able to be where you are and how you are now. And that's, to me, is much more important. Yeah, by all means, have some happiness, but that's not the solid thing that you live in.
It's not stable.
Yeah.
Not reliable.
Yeah.
Whereas a contentment is something, I think, from what I understand anyway, it's something you have some influence over. It's how you are, it's how you think, or don't think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm going to ask you about living alone, being alone.
Okay.
I would imagine for a lot of people that's difficult.
I love it. At this time in my life, I think it's wonderful, you know, and I have, as I said, I have come from a large family, and I have done a lot of things that involved a lot of people, whether it was community life or marriage or my son or whatever. And a lot of those things have been absolutely great. But I'm quite happy to be on my own now with my cats.
And what do you do when you find yourself worrying? You're aware that you're worrying.
Worrying is a waste of time. I don't really do it. Considering things and looking at how to work with them is not the same as worrying. Worrying is just spinning around with something that is disturbing to you. But I'm not a worrier. I never have been. And that's my other soundbite that I tell my son when he gets wound up about something. Worrying is a waste of time.
But it's sometimes you're worrying outside of your own awareness, and it gets such a hold.
Yeah.
It's difficult to get out of.
That happens to people. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't happen to you because
I'm kind of programmed to look at things and see, it's one of my favorite things that Ringu Tolkut Rinpoche said, if there's something you can do about it, no need to worry. If there's nothing you can do about it, no need to worry. And that really resonates with me. Oh, he said many wonderful things, but definitely, that's a quote that I've used for various discussions with people who were stewing around about something, That's a lot of notes. Have you?
Oh, this is. Well, how many times have we nearly met?
Well, that's
I
true.
think the pencil was the first time, the blue pen was the second time, the red pen is the third time, and maybe some more blue pen for the fourth time.
Well, it's fantastic that you got here today.
It's funny, isn't it, that we've tried to schedule this a few times and it never worked out. We made an appointment,
Yeah,
and we had to call it off. And then today, so I thought, okay, it's this afternoon, and you text back straight away, yeah, do it. So it's very good.
that's great.
It is.
That's the way a lot of things happen in my life. That long-term planning doesn't generally work out. But things, and that's that's been also been true for a lot of my life. It's a kind of openness to accept what happens in the moment. Rather than long-term planning and then somebody has to cancel and somebody has to call something. It's whoever shows up at the door,
Or not.
Or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's also having an underlying trust in life that whatever blips there are along the way, you're still on the right path. You're still going to be where you need to be. You're still going to do what you need to do. And however many, side trips are involved. And if you don't have that basic faith that your life is going to be okay, then that's where the worry and all the other problems come in, is the lack of that.
Yeah, there's a lot of suspicion and bitterness and fear and anger, which distorts all of that, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And that basic faith, trust, I would say good-heartedness, and we talk about the younger generation. I think probably that's what they need more than ever, that in amongst it all, amidst of it all, to stay pure, if you like, or good in their heart, clear in their mind, not to let it distort them.
Yeah. In this time of the world, when fear is just like a thing hanging over the world, you know, and so many people are really lost in fear.
So do you think that the powers that are want us to be fearful and scared, and they need us to consume, they need us to feel we need to protect ourselves and to worry the whole time? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do. Hmm.
How would you say that? Or what do you think is... It's almost like we're being cultured. Is that the right word? It's being cultivated in us. That if we're not worried about something, then we're given something to worry about.
Hmm.
If we're not wanting something, we're told what we're missing.
Hmm. That's all happening. And who's orchestrating it is, there are lots of theories, and they may all be right or they may all be wrong, I don't know. But it's happening, you know, and people are suffering from fear, really suffering, whether it's fear in a war situation, or fear that I can't get to a concert, or fear that I can't get the brand of bread that I want to eat. You know, there's this underlying fear that's all over the place. It's terrible. But you know, you can only deal with it if you recognize it.
It's a way of controlling us, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
And if you're a free spirit who thinks independently and, God forbid, lives independently, off-grid, not just off-grid in your house, but in your mind,
Yeah.
then you can't be controlled. If we're not, you know... Do you want to get political for a few sentences?
Maybe. What's your
I don't have any prompt for you.
Not really. Not really. I mean, there's a lot that can be commented on, plus or minus, pro or con, but, you know, how much do we really know about these things? We know what the media feeds people, and we know, if you really want to look into it, you know who's controlling the media. And so it's better to just, you know, try to have a little equanimity over the whole question, because there's no point in in ratcheting up a lot of anger, hatred, fear, because a bunch of people are acting like they're acting. Because, you know, I think the only influence people can have is to maintain their own state. And, you know, if there's a spiritual path you follow it, you know. But don't get too involved in some of this stuff. I don't know what you think about it, but that's sort of how I see it.
Because that's the thing, you, when I first met you, you were anti-tech.
Yes.
You worked in administration office and you had a paint pot size of Tipp-Ex.
Yes.
And numerous sheets of paper, and now you're the most tech octogenarian in the world. And
you actually congratulated me when I got my first MacBook, the little one, and sent an email around that I actually had an email. But, you know, that was another area where I was asking people to do stuff for me because I couldn't do it, you know, and the crunch point was when I needed a new telephone, and it was a telephone you could only order online. And I was, you know, I've had enough of this. And I took a adult education course on basic, you know, introduction to computers with Nick Caffrey. And boom, that was it, you know. And it's so funny because Donna, you remember Donna, is a total technophobe. But she calls me at 7 o'clock every Friday with her list of things for me to look up or to order, or to find out how to do this or that, you know. And I didn't want to be in that position when I was 90 or something. Also, with the latter days with Richard, getting everything sorted would have been a nightmare from here if I couldn't have been online. So, but you know, it was like, okay, I need this, but I need it for what I want. And I really couldn't care less about social media or blah, 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 blah. You know, in fact, I think social media should be called anti-social media.
Anti-social media, yeah.
Yeah, but...
So that's a good example of something, because you're quite, as I said, you're quite direct, you're quite strong, you're quite willful, but there came a point where you just thought, no, that there needs to be some acceptance and adaptation going on here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a big one, wasn't it? Because I didn't want anything to do with any of this. And now look at me, my Apple Watch and...
Yeah. A full range of pets you've got here, yeah.
Oh dear. And I enjoy I enjoy my toys, and what they can do and what I can do with them. And that's perfect.
What happens when they stop working? Like they've stopped working or something won't work with them.
Right.
What does that do to you?
I don't know, it hasn't happened yet.
Oh, you're such a good advert for Apple. Wow. But so you don't have irritations with technology, with gadgets?
Oh yeah,
They stop
sometimes
working.
I swear at them.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
What happens next?
Then I have to sit down and figure it out after when I'm finished swearing.
Okay. So there is some emotion in there, and then it settles. You realise
Yes.
it doesn't help.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have a spiritual path?
I think I do. I think I've been on one my whole life.
Does it have a name?
Not anymore. Because my path has taken me through all the major religions and some spiritual paths that are not actually religions. So I've somehow had to go through all of them, and the basic truth is in all of them. It's a question of how it's practiced or how it's understood. So I don't feel I need to have a name for anything anymore.
Do you spend many hours a day just looking out of the window?
I spend many hours a day in this chair, which includes my pet iPad, and I read books mostly on the iPad. I do a lot of reading. And I'm also looking out the window, I don't come to make a procedure out of looking out the window, but I'm doing it all the time.
Are you aware of what's going through your head when you're looking out the window?
Sometimes. Sometimes not.
Are you aware of just resting in the view kind of thing? You're in the view and just letting the view in?
Yeah.
So you're not particularly thinking about it or anything else?
No, I don't feel I have to practice something. I just have to be here,
So just being fully present. Just being present. And for you that isn't a practice?
Well, maybe it is, but I don't name it as such.
So it's natural. You don't have to force it. You don't have to begin it, and it doesn't end.
No.
It just happens.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So it's almost like you've had outer practices, and now it's refined enough. It's almost like part of your being or something.
Well, that's pretty good. Yeah.
Kind of simplified.
Yeah, very simplified.
Yeah. Maybe you found what works for you and you perfected it, or in moving in that direction at least.
found what works for me, and I'm living with it. Yeah. And it's not like any of us ever reach the point where there's no more need to do anything, but it's a question of whether you need to do it this way or this way. And if you find, something that has settled with you and is nourishing to you, then that's what you need, or that's all you need.
I suppose it comes back to this condition. We're conditioned to believe we're not enough, we're not good enough, or we're not there yet.
Mm-hmm.
So this idea of arriving and settling and being okay and being good enough and relaxing with that is we're not encouraged to feel that. We're always encouraged to be missing something, looking for the next thing.
Yeah, and how many of these things that we think we're looking for are actually real? What is enlightenment?
What do you think enlightenment is?
I think it's something we don't need to think about. Because that's just, another grasping for something. Oh, I've got to keep doing this so I can be enlightened. Well, do you have any idea what that means? No, I don't. So
it comes back to your day at a time, today, here, now.
That is actually all there is. So, and I can understand if someone's very unhappy with their lives, that they're, reaching for something to help them get over feeling the way they feel, living the way they live, or, whatever it is that's making them unhappy. But at some point, just to keep reaching for stuff is not good. But, who can say? People have very different paths. A psychic just did a reading for Mark, which was very interesting, because Mark's having a difficult time and nobody really knows why. But, that some things are not settled in this life. That maybe this life has a purpose to lead you toward something that you have to experience, that you have to work with. But it's not going to be resolved in this lifetime. You have to accept that too.
I think that's an important point, isn't it? Most of us see, when we stop seeing this life as all there is, then things start making more sense. If we want this life, if all we see is this life and we want that to make sense, then that's very difficult. But if we see it over a perspective of many lifetimes, maybe it's easier to make sense of things. Yeah. And listening to you there, you talk about enlightenment, or what is it? Maybe in the way you're talking, it's like becoming more intimate with the present moment, more and more intimate with the present moment, understanding what that means, rather than looking for it in the future.
To me, that's important. Because I really do think this moment is all you have.
Well, I think you're right. Show me tomorrow. Where is yesterday?
Oh dear.
No, but actually, it's all very well making jokes about it, but actually making that part of your way of being, intellectual understanding, and the difference between that and realizing it is maybe that's where the enlightenment word could start to be used, when we realize it for ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, pie in the sky and, fluffy clouds and people playing harps or any other imagery that comes from any other religion, well, that may all be true, but it's not true now. You know? And we won't know whether it's true or not till we get there.
Do you have superstitions?
When I was a child, I could only eat 3 M&Ms at a time, but I got over that.
Yeah, drop that one.
Yeah. And I don't really.
Distracted.
Yeah, well, I'm glad we finally got this done.
Yeah.
It's very good.
It's always nice to accomplish something that you set out to do. So, hope you enjoyed meeting Sophia. And, yep, let's keep living and learning, accepting and adapting. If you'd like to subscribe and like and continue to watch other videos, please do. Most of this channel so far anyway has been Kumye relaxation and how that can be a gateway to meditation. So in the hope that we can live to a ripe old age and enjoy it. Have a good day.